So guys, I'm waiting if somebody's joining, but anyway, um, yesterday I talked about the flat earth and three observations, like the pure rational physical aspect of flat earth, and today I want to talk about the religious aspect. People say there's something written in the Bible about flat earth. Some people say flat earth became. Sorry for the noise in the background. Some people say rambling. Some people say it's an idol, and let's get right into it because idol worship is actually forbidden and forbidden. It's recommended to stay away from, okay, because of good reasons. What is idol worship? Idol worship has everything to do with comparison, comparing yourself. It has everything to do with envy. It has everything to do with outsourcing your spiritual power, sort of, to outside things. That's what outsourcing means. And so you're sourcing basically your power from something else. Like people bow down to bulls. People bow down to all kinds of idols, to golden calves in the past, maybe still now, or they simply worship whatever people create. For example, cars. They live more their cars than their actual life, you see, and they care all about the car. They clean the car, they polish the car, they care so much, they secure the car with companies, security or insurance companies. But about themselves, they smoke, they drink alcohol, they do all kinds of dirty things. They care more about the car than themselves, and that's false, you see. And the same could happen also with flat earth. You know, people tend to use it as an idol, and I want to say here that flat earth is just an aspect of the whole spiritual experience. So if you go and um, idolize the shape of the earth, sort of, then you're also kind of outsourcing your spiritual power to that. And that's what people have to avoid if they talk about flat earth, if they get into this whole topic. And you can also easily be misled by people if they, for example, give you a little bit of flat earth truth, but then mislead you down to into illusions again, just to, like, people say gatekeepers, people say some people are on the fence of figuring out the truth, and then they lure the people with flat earth stuff, but then they lead them down back into a different path, like, I don't know, then they talk about aliens and stuff, you see, or they completely mix up the heliocentric model with the flat earth, so you have a disk instead of the ball earth, but still within the heliocentric model, and that's completely false. So they do not know these models well. And one aspect about the flat earth in the Bible, for example, is that the Bible talks about the physical shape or the physical condition of earth a lot, or of the creation in general. It talks about the firmament, for example, being like molten glass, and there is no shame, or it's not wrong to talk about the physical shape of the earth, but it shouldn't become an idol. And you realize also that the ball earth is a complete idol. You have carved images, of the ball earth. You have creations, people's creations. There are plastic balls in people's rooms, and they are basically, these are basically idols in people's homes. So the ball earth is clearly an idol, exposed as an idol that people worship, sort of. You know, it's all just about the ball earth, the ball earth, the ball earth all the time. You know, when they go, for example, on an airplane and they go on vacation, they really think that they go around the ball based off of that carved idol in their homes or that they have seen in school. Okay? So it is important to talk about the physical shape in this day and age, the physical shape of the earth, because we have that deception, which is the ball earth and the heliocentric model. In other times, we would not have needed so much to talk about that. But since we're here, we have to talk about the physical earth because there is truth. Just like you talk about the physical conditions of your own body, for example, or we're talking about a tree that we're looking at and we analyze the physical conditions of that tree, and then we can determine whether it's an apple tree or a peach tree or a pear tree, you see. So talking about physical matters is not idolizing the physical matter. So you can talk about flat earth easily without idolizing it, you see. And that's very important to understand from a religious background. That people don't go and carve some idols now just because they believe in the flat earth or that they believe the earth is actually flat and not a ball. Because then you're just like all these people that carve statues for the churches, you know. They carve out of wood busts and I don't know how they're called, statues. Mary, Mother Mary statue made of stone or made of wood or whatever. You have Jesus on the cross, on a wooden cross carved out of wood, and people delight in these things. They delight in their own creations, you know. They they love their own creations instead of realizing the creator, you see, the actual creation, life itself. And yet they have fooled people into thinking that creating carved idols for the churches is religious, is of God. And that's what religious people do. But it's completely wrong considered in the Bible itself. So why do people not read the Bible where it says, children, little children, in John it says, little children, keep yourselves away from idols. You see, from carved idols. It gets more clearer when you get back to the Old Testament in Deuteronomy, for example. There are many verses where they say, where it says, don't make carved idols, don't make carved images, don't paint images that show Mary or Jesus or in any kind of way. And that's very important, so that people don't run around with an image in their head and think or are being deceived by appearances. You see, because many think, oh, God can only be a white man with long hair. You see, just because they saw images about Christ, Jesus Christ, with long hair, long wavy hair, and white skin. You see, and they are being deceived that way. So God can expose himself or reveal himself through anybody, through the beggar on the street, just as he can reveal himself through the king of, I don't know, America, Spain, or whatever. You see? So that's the point about idols, that people are being deceived by them. And the ones who create them are delighting in them. And the same for the ball earth. Because the ball earth and the heliocentric model, that's the idol, a deceiving idol in the world. And you have plastic balls in classrooms, you have plastic balls in living rooms with a world map on top of them, and these are clearly idols in people's lives that they follow, that have nothing to do with the actual physical condition of Earth. And they might make models, you know, they might make a whole heliocentric model with all a whole planetary system. What are these called? Orreries or something? They make them and they delight in how they made them perfectly work. But I mean, it's completely away from physics, so it's laughable because it's not the truth. I mean, you've wasted like hours of creating these orreries and they just don't represent the truth. So you see that all of this is kind of deceiving and leading people away from the truth. So flat Earth is not a model, not an idol. People have voted no, 60%, and I agree. I'm just here talking from my point of view. If anybody disagrees, you're free to do that. And if anybody agrees, let's talk more. Glaubst du an eine flache Erde? Ich glaube nicht daran. The comments say, do you believe in a flat earth? I don't believe in a flat earth. I actually know that the earth is flat. You see, there is a difference. You know the physics, then you know the earth is flat. It's not a belief. It's not like you have to believe that there is land, or if I would say, what is beyond the ice? We know that there is a southern rim, a southern ice wall, and people ask me what's beyond the ice. Then I have to believe something because that's what I don't know. You see? And I could come up with all kinds of explanations, but that's beyond my knowledge. Okay? But if I say that the earth is flat, then it's because I know it. It's not a belief. So it's just like well, let's talk about physical shape. You can, for example, or why is it important to talk about a physical shape? Because there's truth. There's a physical truth. That is what people have to admit. And if you look at, for example, a man is physically different than to a woman. There is a physical truth. So if a man cannot accept his physical truth, then what does that do? Well, these men turn vicious or wicked or whatever, but I don't blame them. But the point is that they lie to themselves. They cannot accept that physical truth, and they live in that illusion of maybe being a woman inside of a man's body and all this kind of stuff. So they never actually get into their true power because they deny their physical reality. And the same with the shape of the earth. If you deny the physical reality of earth, you'll never get into the actual physics, to understand the true physics of this creation. Because if people can float in space, and you believe that, it completely messes with your physical understanding, because you were deceived visually through graphics, through animations, through live streams from these deceivers. So it messes with your physical understanding, and you start living in illusions, because the physical body is only weightless in water, and water is on earth. Bodies of water is on earth, and the physical body just falls through gas. Whether that's 1 meter of altitude in the air, or 1,000 meters of altitude, or 10,000, doesn't matter. Physical body of a human will always fall through that gas because of density, because of gravity. Gravity does exist, but gravity is just a term of, or a sum of forces, and a broad term to describe these forces. Gravity goes down, gravity also goes up. A balloon with hot air goes up because of gravity. A human body, falls through the air because of gravity. So gravity does exist. That's the next lie, that people say, well, gravity doesn't exist. Gravity itself is not an actual force. It's just a term to describe all of the forces that are happening, the pressure, the exchange of densities that make this happen. So gravity itself is not really a force that comes out of an object. You see, gravity just describes this whole balancing of particles, of materials, of atoms, of molecules in this creation, within this creation. And even Einstein said that long ago. It's a Scheinkraft, seemingly a force, when in truth it's just a made-up force of many, many other forces. You know, densities is, if you don't understand what that is, a feather has a different density than a stone, and that's why they react differently with the medium they are surrounded by. That's how you can understand it. So air is a certain medium, water is a certain medium. When a feather floats through the air, it reacts differently with that medium than a stone. A stone really falls straight through the air, and that has to do with air pressure or aerodynamics. And then once the feather gets to the water, the feather is just floating on top of the water surface, because the water has a surface tension and it cannot get through that. But a stone just falls through that surface tension and then slows down, but it will still go all the way to the bottom, and that's all because of densities. So there are differences. There is a balancing going on, and then back to gravity going upwards as well. You have, for example, boiling water, and you have air bubbles that form on the bottom of the pot, and these air bubbles rise up because of gravity, because air bubbles are less dense than the surrounding water, the medium, and that's basically talking about gravity. Is flat Earth an idol? And 55% said no, 45% said yes. So I am with the 55% that say no, of course. That's why I opened this live, just to talk about that again. The Bible says, keep yourselves away from idols. And idols is everything that people create with their hands. For example, statues in churches, or I don't know, anything that has the likeness of living beings, and then people go there and they worship them more, they care more about these things, and they delight in their own creations, or not even in their own creations, but in what another human has created. That's also an important point, is that, for example, people talk about Michelangelo, they delight in the creations of this man, and they might go and wanna be like that. You see, and then they follow down these people instead of actually following God. Okay. Same with athletes, sports. So they just follow these people, they try to copy these people, they try to imitate them, and they're being followed into this world, or sucked into this world by following these idols. You see, it's not just statues, it's not just carved objects. In today's world, people have become the idol to worship. Stars, you know, it's a whole production. It's a machine, basically. There are people behind this. They produce these people for the masses to follow along. And then you have this culture where you have a few stars in Hollywood or wherever, and with today's media, they are just posting something on social media, and everybody follows along. You see, so whether they do this consciously or unconsciously is not my position to judge, and I don't judge these people in that sense, but I want to tell the people that they have to stay away from this, be careful with that. General, that's about idols. And why would we have to talk about Hollywood stars now? Because it's important to understand what idols are in people's minds, and what are they following? Are they following the truth, or are they following some dreams, some lies, some illusions? And the shape of the earth is part of that when we have the ball earth, the heliocentric model, because it's false. It's like a dream. People then follow the dream if they believe in that, because they don't know. That's the whole point. They don't know because they have no physical understanding. And I'm also saying not everybody can know necessarily. You know, different people have different capacities. Some people know about certain things, other people know about other things, and we can share that. But still, if, for example, I know something and you don't know something, I cannot really convince you. I can only share that with you, and then you have to decide what you do with that information, and if you go with that or not. So, is flat earth an idol? In my point of view, it's not an idol, and 40 or 54% agree with that. Flat earth, we're just saying basically that the earth is a flat surface. We don't know what's beyond the ice, the southern wall. And all that would be assumptions, all that would be wishful thinking, all of that would be kind of elusive again. But you can very well know that the surface we're standing on is actually flat and everything else is turning above us, based on actual physics, based on studying how your vision works. And talking about that is not an idol, because we're talking about a physical truth here. If we're talking about a tree, about the bark of a tree, or the shape of the leaves, we're just talking about that tree, analyzing it and observing it. But the moment I would go now and try to recreate that tree and carve it out, uh, carve it out of a piece of wood, and then I put it into the ground, of course the tree is not living, that tree is dead, and that would be an idol, and I would delight in my own creation. There is no life in that piece of metal or piece of wood that I just put into the soil, you see. And idols, when you have idols in churches, wooden idols, carved idols, is pretty much the same. People delight in these things, in their own creations, or other people delight in the creations of other people, in these handmade things, and they are fascinated by that. Oh, how can he be so talented and do all of this? And then, because they are so stuck to what people on earth create, they don't see God anymore. They don't see what God has created, what the Father has created. You see, they live more in these people's creations, like cars, smartphones, and all of these kind of things, and they would care more about these things than their own body. And that's a mistake. That's actually dangerous area, sort of. When you care more about these material things than your actual own body. You see, people clean their cars, they clean their houses, they clean these things, but they don't clean their own body. You see, I mean, internally, that's what I'm saying. Yes, they might go showering or whatever, but internally, you see, some people are greedy, some people are whatever, or they do drugs, they are into alcohol, they smoke, they do all kinds of things. They don't clean themselves internally, but they care so much about the car, they care so much about these other things. And because they care so much about other things, they don't come into this space within themselves where they could say, okay, maybe I quit smoking, you know, all of these kind of things, because you need you need attention, you need to bring the attention back to your own life instead of being out there always with the material world. And people like to surround themselves with the material world, right? And have all kinds of idols in their lives, and then they forget about themselves, you see. And they teach that through their behavior onto their children over generations. Because other people just see them as, oh, they have their life figured out, they have it all together, and then they follow down that road. You see, they just imitate. They see a rich guy in a big car, they have no clue how this rich man is actually feeling inside, what he's dealing with or whatever. They just see the material world and they follow down that road. And these are, I mean, idolatry is all about envy and comparison in the end. And with the flat earth, we're just talking about the physical earth, the physical condition, and we're not making it into an idol here. Okay, it's just a part of our spiritual experience here on earth in this life. But the moment you would go and carve something out of a piece of wood, the moment you'd make a bunch of models and say, please buy them, buy them, buy them. You know, you make people buy these things. I mean, how many items is the Vatican selling? Right in front of the Vatican on Peter's Square, there are these shops, and they are selling idols after idols. They are selling images. It's a huge business. That's the false prophecy, sort of. That's the false religion. It does not align actually with the word, the very same word that they're heaving up in front of the people. So people would do good to just read that and listen instead of being deceived by the deeds, you see, of this church, and then following the wrong things. But if, for example, I would go now and make a flat earth model and I would sell it to the people, that would be idolism, sort of. That would be idolatry. And and people would put it into their homes and into classrooms, because you don't know how far that flat surface goes. So anything you're creating that has a limit is already an idol. You don't know what's beyond the ice wall, for example. You don't actually know if there is a firmament that is solid, because the Bible, for example, just says, and I'm just saying what the Bible says here, it's like molten glass. So the firmament is like molten glass. That's just a comparison. That's just a metaphor for how it acts. So you see, it does not mean that it's actually a solid construction. And whenever people then say, yeah, I know the firmament is a solid construction, then you need to deliver some proof. But if you're saying the earth is a flat surface because we have a lot of evidence for that, you know how there is not a single flight route, direct flight between South Africa and Christchurch, New Zealand, or Australia, then chances are really high that the earth is flat and there is no South Pole that you can just cross with a direct flight, because otherwise that would be the shortest route. That would save costs. But however, the actual airline, the flight route, goes beyond the equator back to Dubai, back to Saudi Arabia, or back to Hong Kong in Asia, and then comes back to New Zealand or Australia. And on a flat earth map you can quickly and easily see that that's the straight line, and the airline just passes by these destinations like Dubai or Hong Kong, and so it's like on the way. But on a ball earth it doesn't make any sense at all. It's wasted money if you could just take a direct flight from South Africa to New Zealand or Australia. And that's just one aspect again, together with the whole physical side of things that I explained in the live from yesterday, that you can actually know that the earth is flat. But you cannot know what's beyond the ice wall, because nobody ever has been there, and none of us definitely have been there. Military people maybe have been there, elite people could be that they have been there, but none of us has been there. None of us can go there actually, and that would all be speculation, right? But we're not here for speculation, we are here for what we can actually know and figure out, and without making it into an idol. We're not carving something out of wood, making something out of metal that should represent the whole model. No, not at all. But that's exactly what through the help of false churches has happened in this world, that they produced this idol of a ball Earth and this heliocentric model, orreries, whole orreries with planets, this whole planetary system. It's a huge idol, a huge deception to the eye. And then you got also news stations that constantly show graphics about the ball, you know, slightly sneaking it in whenever there is like a name or something. Then there's an animation coming in where you have the ball Earth turning or something, and then there's the name of the actor that is acting in that movie, which is the news. And and that way people are being deceived. Okay. And because they see it constantly everywhere, they start to believe that that's the truth. Okay guys, I have to end this live now. You can rewatch it. You can rewatch also the one I did last time, which was yesterday. And you can also watch my newest video that I have uploaded about, I think the title was, what was it? Will rocket science change the way we cook pasta? So you can watch that one as well. Thanks for listening and see ya.